It was a pale autumn evening when Lucy, a single mother of 3, walked through the busy city park, absorbed in thought. Her eyes, tired from sleepless nights, watched her children, John, the oldest at 9, always attentive and responsible, Madeline, 7, a sweet girl with a smile that could light up any darkness, and little Henry, just 4, whose energy seemed to never run out. Her brown hair tied up in a messy bun and simple clothes showed a lifetime of hard work. She had been a young mother, raised in a strict household. She had left home early, determined to build a better life for her children than the one she had had. But life, as she had learned, rarely follows meticulous plans, and the lines written by the odds far exceed what we expect. As she watched the children play, Lucy felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. She worked 2 jobs to support her family, but still barely made ends meet. Her thoughts were interrupted by the approach of a figure she vaguely recognized. It was Elena, a woman who frequented the same areas of the park and was often seen collecting cans or talking to herself. Her hair was a mixture of gray and blonde, tangled and dull, falling over a face marked by time and adversity. She was wearing several layers of clothing. Despite the mild temperature, each piece is worn as its wearer. "Sorry to bother you," Elena began, approaching Lucy, her voice shaky. "I couldn't help noticing that you look worried. If you need me, I can watch your children while you sort out what you need. I know it may seem strange, but I've looked after lots of little ones before." Lucy hesitated. The need for help was real, but the idea of leaving her precious children in the care of a stranger terrified her. However, something about the sincerity in Elena's eyes and the resolute way she introduced herself calmed Lucy's heart a little. She knew all too well what it was like to be judged at first sight. I really need to go to the market and the pharmacy, and taking them all is so difficult," Lucy said, still uncertain. "I'd be happy to help." Elena smiled, a smile that, despite the circumstances, conveyed a genuineness that was hard to ignore. Lucy took a deep breath and, despite her nervousness, decided to follow her intuition, instructed the children to listen to Elena and, after telling John to keep an eye on his brothers, hurried off. Before crossing the street, she stopped behind a tree where she kept watch for a few minutes, observing what was happening. But the children were still playing, and Elena seemed to be enjoying herself with them. Lucy took another deep breath and ran off, carrying her worries with her, almost running to make the most of every minute she had. After leaving the children with Elena, Lucy headed for the supermarket. Her quick, determined steps revealed a woman accustomed to making the most of every second of free time. Inside, however, she was in turmoil. The decision to leave her children with a stranger, albeit a well-known figure in the neighborhood, weighed heavily on her mind. She remembered the times when, as a child, her mother had left her with a little-known neighbor, the discomfort and anxiety she had felt, and how she had promised herself never to do the same with her own children. At the market, Lucy moved from shelf to shelf with mechanical efficiency, picking up the necessary items: milk, bread, some vegetables, and not forgetting Henry's asthma medication. As she was putting the shopping in the trolley, her phone vibrated. It was a call from her boss, asking her to cover an extra shift that night at the restaurant where she worked. Lucy's heart sank. She needed the money, but there was no way she could leave the children alone. I need to think. Can I call you back?" Lucy stammered into the phone. "Of course, but don't delay. I need an answer within the hour." Her boss hung up without ceremony. Lucy leaned against the trolley, allowing herself a moment of weakness. Fighting back tears, she weighed up her options. When she returned to the square, the children came running to meet her. "Underscore, how was it, my darlings?" "Underscore, it was very nice, Mom. Elena is very good." Underscore, replied Henry excitedly. Underscore, what's wrong, Lucy? "You don't look well," underscore, said Elena, pulling her aside. "No, it's nothing." Underscore, something's bothering you, isn't it? Underscore, I got a call to work tonight, but I don't know if I can take it. Underscore, why? Underscore, the lady asked. "None of my children." She pointed with her face to the children who were distracted in the square. Underscore, I can look after them for a while longer, if you like. Lucy reflected on the proposal, looking into the lady's eyes, trying to see if there was something hidden behind that kind look. She also tried to search her intuition for the intention behind it. Underscore, only if you trust, Elena replied. Underscore, I know it's hard to trust anyone these days, especially someone who lives on the street. Finally, with a regretful sigh, she decided to trust that her children would be all right for a few more hours with Elena. She called her boss back, accepting the extra shift. Lucy took the children and Elena to her house, gave her the key and gave her and the children some instructions, especially John, the eldest. And so, after organizing everything, she set off for work. The hours there passed slowly, each tick of the clock resounding like thunder in his consciousness. Despite the heat and noise of the restaurant kitchen, Lucy's mind was with her children, bubbling away. She imagined them playing, laughing and running around, under Elena's watchful eye. while her heart squeezed at the thought of the possibility of something going wrong, or of Lucy's ill intentions, at which point she shook her head, trying to dispel those foreboding thoughts. Finally, the shift ended. Exhausted, Lucy ran home, her anxiety growing with every step. As she opened the door, the sight that awaited her brought her to an abrupt halt. The house was silent, the shadows of night already thickening under the walls, and she shuddered. In the dim light, she could see her children sleeping peacefully on a blanket spread out in the middle of the room, each holding a toy. Next to them, Elena sat motionless, watching them with an expression of tenderness and protection. The scene was peaceful, almost idyllic. Lucy approached silently, her heart still pounding. Watching her children and the woman who had looked after them, she felt a complex mixture of gratitude and guilt. When Elena noticed her presence, she stood up. "They were angels, Lucy. Don't worry, they were safe with me." Her voice was low and soothing to the ears. Lucy looked at Elena, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I don't know how to thank you, Elena. I was so worried." Elena stepped forward, placing a wrinkled but firm hand on Lucy's shoulder. "You do what you need to for them, as we all would. There's no need to worry now. They're fine, and that's what matters." Lucy looked at her sleeping children, the tension finally leaving her body, and, for the first time that night, she allowed herself to cry. After a moment of emotion, Lucy wiped away her tears, looked at Elena with a new perspective, and felt a sincere curiosity about the woman who had taken such good care of her children. With a kind gesture, she invited Elena for a hot meal, an offer that spoke of more than gratitude. It spoke of a desire for connection and understanding. Elena accepted with a nod, her face lit up with a humble smile. As they walked to the kitchen, the silence between them was comfortable, just the sound of footsteps and the light snoring of sleeping children. Lucy quickly prepared some sandwiches and poured tea. "I've been worried. I'm sorry for judging you. You don't have to apologize for that. You're right, they're your children. You have to protect them. How did you learn to look after children so well?" Lucy asked as she ate. Elena smiled, but her expression soon softened, and a veil of sadness quickly passed over her eyes before she began to speak. "I had a son, many years ago. He was a good boy, very much like your John over there." She nodded gently to John, who was still asleep. "But life doesn't always give us what we expect, and I've lost a lot, including him." The kitchen fell silent, the weight of Elena's words hanging in the air. Lucy reached for her hand, squeezing it in solidarity. "I'm so sorry, Elena. I can't imagine your pain. It's something you never get over, but you learn to live with it. And helping other children, it makes me feel like I'm keeping his memory alive in some way." As the evening progressed, they talked more, sharing stories and laughter. Lucy, a nursery school teacher, fascinated by stories and children, had grown up in a turbulent family. As the eldest sister, she had learned to protect her younger brothers and sisters, and when she grew up and left home, she had no doubts. She trained as a teacher. In those first years after graduation, everything flowed as she had hoped. She soon found love in Joseph, a determined and playful teacher, and they married and had a son, Charles. But the life that seemed so sweet, and the plans for their next child, were wiped out when their house was invaded by bandits. Joseph was killed trying to protect them. The family was torn apart, but for Charles, Lucy still found the strength to fight on. But months after the tragedy, Charles was stricken with a terrible headache. The doctors were unable to explain the cause and origin of it, but the pain became worse and more intense, until the little boy fell into a coma. It was months of suffering for Lucy, who gradually lost her sparkle and stopped enjoying teaching. The times when she wasn't at school, she spent in bed next to her son in hospital. The debts came in and the doctors gave her no hope. She cried and prayed for him, but nothing seemed to work, and that was when, in March 1994, Charles finally passed away. Lucy was destroyed. With the debts, she also lost her house. She couldn't recover and go back to teaching. It drove her mad almost suddenly. Her mind couldn't conceive of that loss, and it was only on the streets that she found refuge, trying in every way to destroy her past so that she wouldn't suffer anymore. At the end of the night, when Elena was about to leave, Lucy stopped her with a hesitant offer.
"Elena,
I'd like you to consider spending more time with us. Not just looking after the children, but as part of our family. I know it's not much, but we can try to find a space for you here." Elena looked at Lucy, her eyes filled with a complex mixture of surprise and emotion. "Are you serious?" Her voice was low, almost incredulous. "Yes, I've never been more serious. You've helped us more than you can imagine. I was desperate. I feel you're a good person. Now I really know it. Maybe we can both help each other." With tears flowing freely now, Elena nodded, unable to speak. She hugged Lucy, and in their embrace there was gratitude, acceptance, and the start of a new chapter for both of them. The next morning, when the children saw that Elena was there, they ran towards the lady. And when they learned that Elena would be staying with them there, Madeline hugged her, followed by her brothers. Elena hugged them back, her eyes watering with tears, but smiling. "You're like a grandmother to us then," exclaimed Enrique with the innocence of his 4 years. Everyone laughed, and the atmosphere was filled with a sense of impromptu family and genuine affection. "Well, I'll agree to be a borrowed grandmother, if you'll have me, of course," Elena replied, her laughter mixed with tears of joy. Over the next few days, Lucy and Elena worked together to find a space in the house that could serve as Elena's bedroom. It was a small room at the end of the corridor, previously used as storage, but with the potential to become a warm and welcoming place. Together, they cleaned, painted the walls a soft shade of blue, and found a bed and chest of drawers in a second-hand furniture store. As they worked, conversations flowed freely between them. Elena shared more about her past, the difficulties and losses she had faced, while Lucy talked about the expectations of raising 3 children on her own, the challenges and small victories that made up her daily life. Lucy was still young when she left home, with high hopes and plans. She became pregnant with John when she was only 16. 2 years later came Madeline, and she and Richard left their parents' home almost driven away, but confident that everything would work out. They moved to San Francisco, California, in search of a better life. Things went well for a while, but during her 3rd pregnancy, Richard left home and never returned. He told her he was going to try life away and never heard from her again. Lucy had suffered, alone, pregnant with 1 child and with 2 others to look after. The only reason she hadn't fallen into a state of depression was because she had an almost unbreakable faith, but those were calamitous times, and she was still recovering from it all. Her trust in people was still fragile, which is why trusting Elena had been such a test from the universe. "You know, Elena, I never imagined that my life would turn out this way," Lucy commented one day, while they were sanding down an old bedside table that Elena would use in her bedroom. "Neither did I, dear. But sometimes life surprises us. And often these surprises are blessings in disguise," Elena replied, smiling as she wiped the dust off the table. John, Madeline, and Henry quickly became even more attached to Elena, treating her like a real grandmother. They came to her with their school stories, little treasures they found in the park, and sometimes their doubts and fears. Elena always had a word of encouragement, wise advice, or simply a listening ear and a comforting hug. One sunny afternoon, while the children played in the yard, Lucy and Elena sat on the balcony, watching them with affection and a sense of tranquility that Lucy hadn't felt for a long time. "You've changed our lives, Elena," Lucy said, looking at Elena with gratitude. "In ways I can't even begin to explain. And you've changed mine, Lucy," Elena replied, her eyes shining with emotion. "You've given me a purpose again, a family. That's something I thought I'd never have again. I guess we owe each other then." Lucy laughed, and Elena joined her. As they laughed, Madeline ran up to them, holding a flower she had just picked from the garden. She handed the flower to Elena with a radiant smile. "For you, Grandma Elena, because you make our house happier." Elena accepted the flower, looking at little Madeline with deep love. "Thank you, my dear. This flower is as beautiful as your hearts." It was in this way that life in Lucy's house found a new rhythm, a new balance. Elena wasn't just a helper or a resident. She was part of the family, woven into the tapestry of their lives with threads of love, respect, and mutuality. Lucy, watching her children and Elena interact, knew that this decision, although born out of necessity and initial desperation, had turned into one of the best decisions of her life. Not only had she helped Elena find a home and a new purpose, but she had given her children something invaluable, the experience of the unconditional love of an extended family. As time passed, Elena's presence in the family's life not only enriched their daily experiences, but also began to heal old wounds. Lucy noticed the subtle changes not only in her children, but in herself. The anxiety that had previously consumed her on a daily basis was giving way to a feeling of security and hope. She was able to work carefree, and as a result she was doing more at work, managing to stand out and earn a little more, already making bigger plans than that. On a particularly rainy day, while the gentle sound of the drops beat against the windows, Lucy and Elena sat in the living room with a cup of hot tea. The children were playing quietly on the floor with board games and puzzles. "Elena, I've been thinking," Lucy began, hesitantly. "Have you ever thought about teaching again? I mean, you have so much to offer, and I think—" "Oh, Lucy, I've thought about it many times. But, you know, after everything that happened, I got scared. Afraid of failing, of not being able to do it anymore, of facing the outside world again," Elena confessed, her eyes roaming over the faces of the little ones who were playing. "I understand that. But don't you think that, perhaps, this fear is just trying to protect you from something that, deep down, you are more than capable of facing?" Lucy asked softly, encouraging her with a smile. Elena pondered for a moment, the idea swirling around in her mind. The truth was that she missed teaching, being in a classroom, inspiring and being inspired by curious young minds. But fear, that persistent obstacle, always found a way to discourage her. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's time to face that fear. You've been an incredible example of courage for me, Elena replied, her voice shaky but determined. And you to me. Lucy held Elena's hand, a gesture of support and complicity. How about we start small? You could give some private lessons here at home, perhaps to the neighborhood children, just to get a taste of teaching again. That sounds possible. Yes, let's try that. Elena smiled, a flame of hope lighting up in her eyes. Over the next few days, Lucy helped Elena prepare a small space at home for the classes. They spread the word, and it wasn't long before some interested parents started sending their children for private lessons with Elena. The experience was a rebirth for her, each lesson rekindling the passion and confidence that had been overshadowed by years of adversity. Watching Elena teach, with her unwavering patience and dedication, brought a new sense of pride to Lucy. She realized that helping someone rebuild their life could be as transformative for the helper as it was for the one being helped. Elena soon became a beloved figure not only in the house, but also in the community. Parents began to report noticeable improvements in their children's school performance and enthusiasm for learning. Elena, revitalized by her return to the world of teaching, was flourishing in ways she herself had not anticipated. Meanwhile, Lucy watched it all, feeling a deep and genuine joy. Life, although still full of challenges, seemed more manageable, richer, and infinitely more hopeful. The harmony in Lucy's home seemed like a modern fairy tale, a rebirth from the ashes for everyone involved. For the first time in years, Lucy seemed to have seen everything in color again. However, as with any story of transformation, not every chapter is without its challenges. One Wednesday afternoon, when autumn was already painting the leaves of the trees in fiery hues, an unexpected problem arose. Lucy received a call from her children's school, informing her that Madeline had injured herself in the playground. Although it wasn't serious, someone had to go and pick her up. Lucy, stuck in rush hour at work, felt panic creep up her spine. She called Elena, who promptly offered to drive her to the school. "Don't worry, Lucy. I'll take care of everything," said Elena, trying to convey calm through the phone. Elena arrived at the school and found Madeline in the clinic, with a small bandage on her knee and a frightened look on her face.
"Grandma Elena."
Madeline ran into Elena's arms, who hugged her tightly. "It's all right, darling. Let's go home and take care of it properly," Elena said softly, as they walked to the bus. On the bus, a few curious eyes turned to them, but Elena was focused on comforting Madeline, telling amusing stories to distract her from the pain and fright. When they returned home, Elena took care of Madeline, applying an anti-inflammatory ointment and putting on a movie for her to watch. She sent a reassuring message to Lucy, who could only reply hours later, grateful and relieved. "Thank you, Elena. I don't know what I'd do without you." Lucy wrote, "We're here for each other." This situation reinforced the trust and mutual dependence that had formed between Lucy and Elena. However, the following week, a new challenge arose. Elena, while talking to some parents after one of her lessons, was abruptly approached by a woman who seemed hostile. "You're the teacher who used to live down the street, aren't you?" the woman asked, her tone full of judgment and suspicion. Elena, taken by surprise, hesitated before answering. "Yes, I was once in a difficult situation, but now I'm rebuilding my life and helping other children to learn and grow. I don't know if I feel comfortable with someone with your past teaching my child," the woman declared, her expression hard. Underscore, what could someone like that teach him? To use drugs? Elena felt as if the ground was disappearing from under her feet. She tried to explain her qualification and the transformation she had experienced, and that she had never been involved with any kind of narcotic, but the woman walked away, leaving Elena in a whirlwind of emotions. Arriving home, Elena shared what had happened with Lucy, who was outraged and immediately offered her support. "Elena, you are an essential part of this family and these children's lives. Don't let anyone's prejudice take that away from you," Lucy said firmly, her voice full of determination. Lucy proposed that they organize a meeting with the students' parents to openly discuss the class program and Elena's story, giving her a chance to talk about her journey and her aspirations. The meeting was scheduled for the following weekend, and Elena felt a mixture of nervousness and hope. It would be a chance to confront prejudices head-on and perhaps change a few minds in the process. The weekend arrived more quickly than Elena would have liked. She had spent the previous few days going over in her mind what she would say at the meeting, each word weighing as heavily as her future. Lucy, for her part, was organizing the house, wanting the atmosphere to be as welcoming as possible, a reflection of the security and love Elena had provided for her children. On Saturday afternoon, parents began to arrive, some curious, others visibly tense. Elena felt her stomach turn, but Lucy's presence by her side gave her strength. Lucy began the meeting with a warm welcome and a brief introduction to the purpose of the meeting. I want everyone here to really get to know Elena, who has not only been a savior for my family, but an inspiration and an excellent educator for our children. Lucy gave Elena the floor with an encouraging look. Elena stood up, her hands trembling slightly, but her voice was firm as she began to speak. Good afternoon, everyone. I know that some of you have concerns about my past, and I understand that. I'm not here to hide who I am or where I came from. Elena paused, looking into her parents' eyes. I've been without a home, yes. I've been through hardships that I hope many of you will never have to face. But these experiences have taught me a lot about resilience, empathy, and the importance of education. She talked about her degree in pedagogy, about the years of teaching before her life was turned upside down and how, with Lucy's help, she was rebuilding her life. She explained her teaching method, emphasizing how she adapted lessons to engage and inspire children, and how this was showing results. I ask you to judge me by the work I do and the positive impact I have on your children's lives, and not by a period of adversity I faced. Elena concluded, her speech filled with a palpable sincerity. There was a silence after she finished, a moment of reflection for everyone. The woman who had confronted Elena earlier was the first to break the silence. I apologize for being harsh with you, Elena. Listening to you today, I realized that I didn't know the whole story. My son speaks very highly of your classes, and I shouldn't have prejudged you, she said, visibly embarrassed. Other parents began to express support, sharing how their children were thriving under Elena's care and how they valued her dedication. Elena felt a wave of relief and gratitude, tears shining in her eyes as she listened to her parents. Lucy held her hand under the table, a smile of pride and joy lighting up her face. The meeting ended in an atmosphere of renewed understanding and respect. Elena felt as if an enormous weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She was ready to move on, not just surviving, but thriving with the new family she had found and the community that now supported her. As the months passed, Elena established herself more and more as a central figure in the life of the family and the local community. Her journey of redemption had become a tangible example of how compassion and understanding can transform lives. Lucy's home, once a place of uncertainty and constant fatigue, now pulsed with the comforting rhythm of stability and love. Elena not only continued her work as an educator for the local children, but also started a small after-school tutoring program to help children who were lagging behind in their reading and writing skills. Lucy, for her part, found a new balance in her life. With Elena helping out with the children, she was able to devote some time to herself, taking up old hobbies that she had put aside, such as painting and gardening. The move not only eased the burden of her daily responsibilities, but also rekindled a spark of joy that had been suppressed by the exhausting routine of work and motherhood. The children, especially, flourished under Lucy and Elena's combined care. One spring evening, as the soft light of dusk spread across the living room, Lucy watched her children playing on the carpet, with Elena sitting between them, a fairy tale book open on her lap. A feeling of contentment enveloped her, as warm and bright as the last rays of sunlight coming through the window. "Mom, are you crying?" Madeline asked, noticing the silent tears in Lucy's eyes. "They're tears of happiness, darling," Lucy replied, smiling through her tears. "I'm so grateful for everything we have now, for everything Elena has brought into our lives." Elena lifted her eyes from the book, meeting Lucy's gaze. A serene, understanding smile crossed her face, a reflection of the unbreakable bond that now united them. "It is I who am grateful that you have accepted me as part of this beautiful family," Elena replied, her voice laced with emotion. As night fell over San Francisco, the house on the quiet little street shone with the light of the living room lamp, a beacon of hope and renewal. Inside, a family continued to laugh and learn, embraced by the certainty that, together, they could face whatever the future held. Thank you very much to those who have supported the channel financially through the link in the comment pinned. This helps me to bring more and more stories to you. And don't forget to like and also subscribe to continue receiving the new stories.